Okay, since we left off from the podcast, before that episode had dropped, I was dedicating everything to my boy,
Yeah.
right? And I think that after that, that was I was thinking if I can every moment that we spent, my wife and I spent this summer in the hospital was with him, right?
Yeah.
And so when I got a chance to step out, I was thinking, okay, I got to get the podcast done. I got to get the podcast done. I got to get the podcast done. And so after we got the news and he passed away, and we were still dealing with that, but we dealt with it back then. I said to myself, one thing that my son has taught me is resiliency.
Mm.
Okay, you got to be resilient in whatever you face, no matter the obstacles, no matter the bumps in the road. You got to be resilient for everything. So after that, I set out on a course to make sure that if I hadn't stated it before, that I was dropping every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.
He is so consistent. He's so diligent.
I had to make sure. That no matter what, I have to drop Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and it becomes a job. It becomes a characteristic of yourself.
Yes, very nice.
After I drop this episode, my mind is already wondering what's next. What's the next episode? What's coming? Right? So I go to LA. I do 4 episodes out there over the course period of 2 weekends, right? And you being my editor, let's talk about that, and then we'll get into we'll talk about something else before we wrap the episode.
Okay, so when you first hit me up and you told me about your podcast and you told me episodes to go listen to, it wasn't that I wasn't impressed or I didn't like them. I was just like, okay, I can see where this is going. Let me tell y'all, from what I listened to in the beginning to now, I would like shout out to you. You have been very diligent and very consistent, and I can see how your podcast has grown exponentially just within a few months.
Yeah.
And I really think that's beautiful, especially thinking about what you and your wife have faced, and just in the face of that, like you've come out of that, or you're just working through it, and you're still keeping your spirits high and you're keeping yourself focused. And if that's not an inspiration to creatives everywhere, I don't know what is.
It takes a lot, man. I'll say that because even with the intro part that I now say at the beginning of the episode, my wife was like, you keep refuting everything he's saying. Like, it was my large brother that was just like, hey, man, you got to kind of get right in there. You got to jump right in. And I was like, what do you mean? And we were going back and forth. And when I told my wife that, she was like, listen, you keep refuting. Just like when I tell you stuff, that's why I don't tell you nothing about the podcast, because you keep refuting everything I'm saying. So, sometimes the critiques can be overwhelming.
Yes.
Sometimes pride.
I'm so glad you listened to mine.
Pride gets in the way. But I think on episode 23, Resiliency, now streaming on all platforms, I said that my wife and you are the ones that are really helping me mold and put things together, piece by piece.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate
that. No doubt.
And any way that I can help, I'm willing, because you're definitely growing.
Well, listen. It's a part of, like, nobody. Illmatic wasn't just Nas.
Right.
I referenced that album because that was the album that changed his career. So Far Gone wasn't just Drake. He had help here and there. Reasonable Doubt wasn't just it wasn't just Jay. You know what I'm saying? So everybody needs that supporting cast to be able to handle the things that I'm not seeing. You know what I'm saying? I'm worried about the artistic side of it, but you also got to factor in, okay, well, what is being said? Is it being perceived the way you want it to be perceived?
Right.
So, everybody needs a team of some sort.
Yes.
You know
that is true. That's true. You seem like you got a pretty solid team.
Oh yeah, it's got some. I got to add more people to it. You know what I'm saying? But it's going.
You just keep doing. I mean, I just feel like you keep doing what you're doing,
yeah.
And it's gonna every piece of the puzzle that you need.
I need this podcast to be number 1 in the state of Texas.
Well, you keep putting that energy out there, friend. Because every time I hear him say so, the number 1, I'm like, yup, that's JR. I know who that is. I know what podcast that is. And that's good, though. I mean, that's good. That means, you're setting that expectation, and no doubt, like, you're evolving to be that number 1.
Yeah.
If not, you're already number 1. Hey,
I need that number 1 spot. I need it. It's mandatory. So go
Yeah.
on with what you were saying. I was just thinking, I'm over here looking in the computer and I realized Big Sean just dropped another single. Well, the single for his new project called Single Again, and that single is so hard. It's so you ain't heard it, have you? Well, when you get off the
No, I
episode, you
will.
need to listen to it. It's
No, I
dope. It's dope. Go ahead.
So I didn't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, go ahead. Listen, like when I told three, the studio that we'll be going to soon. I told three that my editor is gonna come in here, and you've got to be accepting of her personality because it's strong. You know what I'm saying? You've got to be accepting of her personality because if she ain't feeling something,